So it's the 9th of October 2026 and we're just outside the Royal Commission in Sydney, and there's a protest here today put on by various Palestinian groups. And they're protesting directly opposite, so they're here and the Royal Commission's over there in that sort of shiny building. So they're kind of a little bit diagonally opposite. The cop's getting in, getting plenty of his footage done.
You're supporting genocide.
So there's a reasonably small sort of crowd here. They're waiting on a few speakers.
You're supporting genocide.
Small but vocal, as we say.
Gillian Siegel, you can't hide.
Gillian Siegel, you can't hide.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
Gillian Siegel, you can't hide.
Gillian Siegel, you can't hide.
And it sounds like the little bit of chanting that's been going on for 2 or 3 minutes is drawing out the mainstream media. Because at the moment, there's a guy, a photographer guy. There's a couple of more independent type medias here, but here come the boys with their big cameras now. They're on their way over with the wet weather covers. So they will be speaking. They have got a little something set up, a speaker system which you can hear. And also, someone just told me there was a counter protest over outside a counter protest against this protest. And I heard that Mark Leach was there, kind of running it, or there was 3 people anyway. So that's what I heard. That's only just word of mouth from someone. I haven't been over to have a look. So the mainstream media is now en route. Everyone's being very careful not to jaywalk with the 20 cops everywhere. There's 3 of them now. They work in cahoots, I think. It's just they come out together. The cameras all look the same covers. Kind of, they're all dressed in these outfits that are similar. Oh yeah, that's the mainstream media. There will be some speeches starting soon. There's some more mainstream media over there. Sorry, just getting myself organised. Judith Trainer from Jews Against the Occupation 48. Better somehow.
I know exactly what anti-Semitism is and what it means. That's how I started my Royal Commission submission, although with more detail given. Like so many Jews who don't support Israel, I poured my heart, my family history and my Jewish identity into my submission to this Royal Commission just to be heard. We all felt compelled to prove our Jewishness in the hope that we might at least be acknowledged and perhaps even invited to give evidence. That's the position anti-Zionist Jews find ourselves in. I don't want to be here protesting out in the rain outside the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism. If there had to be one, I'd rather be inside giving evidence to it. As of today, the only Jewish witness opposed to Israel's atrocities who's been invited to appear before the Commission has been the wonderful Sarah Schwartz from the Jewish Council, who spoke so courageously on behalf of so many of us, and we thank her. Michael West Media has reported extensively on the lack of rigorous questioning and evidentiary hearing at this Commission. It's not that funny, but it feels to me really a bit like the castle, you know, when the court case, it's all the vibe of the thing. Anyway, I was determined that my submission would be different, and every serious allegation I made was supported by evidence. This is a little bit of summary from my submission. From the time I first learned about the horrors of the Holocaust, I became deeply preoccupied with how such evil could occur and how ordinary people could allow it to happen. The phrase "never again" carried meaning for me, and anti-Semitism terrified me. The Holocaust profoundly shaped my moral worldview, but rather than teaching me to centre Jewish suffering above all others, it taught me to recognise dehumanisation, racism and mass violence when they occur. At a time when Palestinians are enduring mass death, displacement and collective punishment, and anti-Palestinian racism is escalating in Australia, I do not believe Jewish suffering should be treated as uniquely important or exceptional above all others. If this commission over there was generally concerned with social cohesion, it would be examining all forms of racism that exist in Australia, not elevating one above all others. Since publicly speaking about Israel's live stream genocide in Gaza, I've been called, amongst other things, a capo, you've all heard of, self-hating Jew, fake Jew, not a Jew, terrorist supporter, anti-Semite, blah, 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 blah. We're holding up signs here with some of the worst of the insults we get. Please, if there's any media here, please to feature them, they need to be shown. Our Jewish identity is routinely questioned because I do not support Zionism or belong to establishment Zionist Jewish organisations. My submission received an overwhelming response when it was shared on social media, and Michael West Media actually published an extract from it. I recounted horrific abuse that we all received. In my comprehensive submission, I documented death threats, I documented anti-Semitic abuse, I documented organisations publicly denying my Jewish identity, I documented an AFP investigation, I documented police reports, I documented abuse from Zionist organisations and individuals who claim to represent the Jewish community as if we are all one community with one opinion. And I sought leave to appear before the Royal Commission, this block specifically as it relates to social media and the media. This was the response I received from the Commissioner's office. The Commissioner is not satisfied that you have a direct and substantial interest in the scope of the hearing. Apparently death threats, anti-Semitic abuse and having my Jewish identity publicly denied does not constitute a direct and substantial interest. And as of this moment, I think there's only one Jewish woman whose opinion seems to count for anything, and she's over there in the dry in the warm. I can't help thinking that we're all the wrong kind of Jew for this Royal Commission. And on that note, is Jepke here yet? No, okay. Shamikh? Shamikh? Yeah. We'll introduce our first speaker. From Gaza, he's an Australian Palestinian academic and community advocate on Sydney's northern beaches who spearheaded the creation of the first ever surf life training and beach safety NIPAS program in Gaza. He holds a Master's in Peace and Conflict Studies from the Uni of Sydney and a PhD candidate at the Uni of Wollongong, where he researches Palestinian resistance, diplomacy and settled colonialism. Over to you, Shamikh.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. As a Palestinian, I am proud to have friends like you. Thank you so much for supporting freedom in Palestine. Thank you, and I'd like to thank Jewish Against Occupation and Stop the War in Palestine for inviting me to speak today. Today, we are part of an important national conversation about anti-Semitism and social cohesion. The Royal Commission has been established to examine anti-Semitism and to consider how Australia can strengthen social cohesion. That is an important task, but if we want that conversation to strengthen our society, every community affected by these issues must have the opportunity to be here. Our communities come from different backgrounds, but today we are standing together because we believe in the same values: justice, equality, and freedom. Social cohesion can't be built by listening to only some voices while excluding others. The Australians Palestine Advocacy Network was not given the opportunity to present its perspective during part of the Royal Commission hearings. Anti-Zionist Jewish voices were also excluded. If we want to understand experiences of different communities, we must hear directly from those communities. You can't have a meaningful conversation about Palestinians without listening to Palestinians. You can't have a meaningful conversation about anti-Zionist Jewish without listening to anti-Zionist Jewish Australians. Listening is where social cohesion begins. I also want to be very clear about something. Antisemitism is real, it exists and causes real harm. It should be confronted wherever it happens. But Australia should apply the same principle to everyone. Palestinians, Muslims and Arabs also experience racism and hate. Anti-Palestinian racism exists. Islamophobia exists. These forms of racism deserve the same recognition, the same serious attention, and the same protection. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for equal treatment because racism should never depend on who the victim is. Another issue concerned me over the past 2 years. Peaceful Palestine solidarity has been discussed through the language of security. Peaceful protest is not security threat. It is a part of democracy. People march because they care about human rights. People march because they believe justice matters. People march because they believe their voices matter. We should never confuse peaceful protest with criminal behavior. Supporting Palestine human rights is not extremism. Opposing the occupation is not antisemitism. Criticizing the policies of the Israeli colonial government is not hatred towards Jewish people. These are different things. They should never be confused. If we blur these distinctions, we weaken freedom of expression, we weaken democracy. When peaceful protest is linked to crime or public safety, entire community begin to be viewed with suspicion instead of being judged by evidence like everyone else. I was shocked by the terrible attack at Bondi. Every victim deserves justice. Every crime must be investigated. Every offender should be held accountable, but responsibility belongs to the individuals who commit the crimes. It should never be placed on entire communities or peaceful protest movement. As far as the public has been told, the investigations are still continuing and the legal process hasn't been concluded. The process should be allowed to continue. Justice requires evidence, not assumptions, not fear, not collective blame. And for me, this is not only public debate, it's personal. And I had this experience of racism in Australia last year. My brother and I were attacked after attending peaceful Palestine rally simply because we were wearing Palestinian kufiya. We reported the attack. We provide evidence. Member of Parliament raised a question about our case. The offender pleaded guilty to the offense, yet we felt that racist nature of what happened was never recognized. Shame. Many Palestinians, Muslims and Arabs feel that experience are not taken as seriously as those of other communities. That need to change. Political disagreement is normal in every democracy. Racism is not. People have every right to disagree about government, policies, and political movement. but there is clear differences between political disagreement and hatred directed at people because of their identity. No one should be dehumanized before being Palestinian. No one should be treated for being Muslim. No one should be treated as a threat simply for speaking up of Palestine. Nothing about Palestinians should be discussed without Palestinians. Nothing about anti-Zionist Jewish Australians should be discussed without anti-Zionist Jewish Australians. A healthy democracy welcomes different opinion. It doesn't silence them. Dear friends and comrades, when I look around today, I see something hopeful. I see Palestinians, I see anti-Zionist Jewish Australians, I see Australians from many different backgrounds, standing together, standing peacefully, standing for justice. This is not a threat to social cohesion. This is what social cohesion looks like. Real social cohesion is not built by excluding voices. It's not built by, it should be built by listening. It's not built through fear. It's built through equality. It is not built by asking community to remain silent. It's built by making sure every community is here, every community is respected, and every community is protected equally. Because when every voice matters equally, Australia became stronger. And this is Australia worth building together. Thank you so much.
Before introducing our next speaker, I just wanted to, and I really hope there's some media here to film this, but I don't think there is, just highlight some of the worst abuse that we've received. They're on the posters. This one from the famous Mark Liebler. If you might remember last year, I think it was, he was actually taken to the AHRC and he had to sort of, did he apologise? I don't think he apologised, but I think maybe he put a message on the tweet or something. Anyway, nothing but nothing is worse than those Jews who levelled totally unfounded allegations of genocide, ethnic cleansing against Israel. They are repulsive and revolting. I won't go on with that one. There's one. So there was a photo taken of myself, Jepke, Laurie from Jews Against the Occupation at a rally in Sydney, and that appeared on a delightful Facebook group called Jews of Sydney. It had our photo, and here's just some of the comments underneath. Jews, they might have been born that way, but I guess they haven't been associated with any Jewish culture for decades. About as Jewish as Ali Khamenei. And then, you know, the old favourite, about as Jewish as a ham sandwich. The other day, Michelle. It's my favourite from Danny. I want to make Danny famous. No, let's make Danny famous. Okay, it's right in front of me, beg your pardon. Yeah, this literally came a week ago. I think it's really worth mentioning. And I'm going to mention her name because she didn't have any shame in putting her name towards a direct message on our Facebook page and sent this directly to our website, Jews Against the Occupation 48. Here goes. Her name is Danny Buskilla. She was Miss Israel Global 2016. Also, she's been Miss World finalist, blah, blah, whatever. Some kind of semi-influencer, something or other. Hi, you around, Danny? Listen to this. She says, stop pretending to be Jewish. You're a Nazi organisation. Do you think if I say this loud enough they'll hear me over there? You don't know history, you don't even know who wants you dead, you dumbass morons. Israel ain't going nowhere, so stop hoping for us to die and learn to accept our present scum hypocrites. I'll kind of leave it there, you get the idea, but yeah, it's not funny, but what can we do? We sometimes just have to laugh and instead of crying. Anyway, right, amazing next speaker. Goudsmit is a dancer, singer, poet, director of Kinetic Energy. Energy Theatre Company, she's a fellow member of Jews Against Occupation 48, and I'm very proud and pleased to have her as my friend. Over to you, Jepke.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you everyone who's turned up today on this, well, it's clearing up, isn't it? Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe things are shifting. So I'm speaking on behalf of Jews Against the Occupation 48, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak. We live in dystopian times when a clear understanding of what is true and what is false has been corrupted. To have a voice is a privilege, but in a healthy 21st century society it would be a democratic right. And for the voice of truth to be heard should not be a rarity. Weaponization of anti-Semitism as a shield for Israeli crimes against humanity, including genocide, must not be the driver of the investigation being conducted here. If this Royal Commission turns out to be a Zionist pro-Israel tool, it will be another deep stain on our country's history of racism. To eradicate any kind of racism, we must be prepared to recognize how racism is used as a manipulative force and ask the question, who benefits from a system where such discrimination is condoned and exploited? Criticism of Israel is being framed as an act of anti-Semitism. People who speak out against Israel's atrocities are being shut up and cancelled, while genocide apologists have their say. Beware of kafirs, watermelons, forget about killer drones and bulldozers and bombs. How can the discomfort felt by certain Zionists when they see a kafir or hear pro-Palestine peace slogans be more serious than the mutilation and murder of tens of thousands of children? More important than the unspeakable suffering of an entire people being dehumanized, dispossessed, and erased from their land and from history. In my submission to the Royal Commission, I wrote that exceptionalization of anti-Semitism is a form of racism, and that a thorough investigation into the root causes and persistence of every type of racism in this country would be far more beneficial for our social cohesion and well-being. I asked for the anti-Zionist Jewish voice to be heard and listened to if possible, as well as the voice of our Arab communities, our Palestinian community. Well, all, as you know, have been deemed not to have, quote, direct and substantial interest, unquote, in this commission. The Jewish Council of Australia, the JCA, is the only non-Zionist Jewish group given leave to appear. One of JCA's founders, Sarah Schwartz, gave a strong and dignified testimony on the 2nd of July. Seen as dissenters and traitors, JCA members are copying much flack and smear from the Zionist majority that is dominating the narrative. When the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network, APAN, was refused leave to appear, they rightly said that excluding our community from a process examining racism and social cohesion, as well as from discussions which label our advocacy as anti-Semitic, is unacceptable. As long ago as September 2025, that's a long time ago, the government received the report on Islamophobia from Aftaq Malik, the Special Envoy for Combating Islamophobia. As far as I know, it is still unanswered. It would have been a great service to social cohesion if the government had proposed that the problems of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia would be investigated together. Especially since the Special Envoy for Combating Antisemitism, Gillian Siegel, a deeply committed Zionist herself, has made the claim that the March for Humanity across the Harbour Bridge had paved the way for the Bondi massacre. Well, Ms. Siegel is conflating criticism of Israel and its Zionist ideology and apartheid regime with anti-Semitism. As far as Ms. Siegel is concerned, the pro-Palestinian movement is synonymous with anti-Semitism. If ever there were a model for social cohesion in our multicultural society, that march across the bridge would be it. And let it be noted that I and all the other Jews walking on that bridge with everybody else on that day felt perfectly safe. But of course, the false conflation works to the advantage of Ms. Siegel and to Israel and to the perpetual war machine. In their eyes, we are the wrong type of Jew. We refuse to identify with Israel. We detest Zionism and we declare our solidarity with the Palestinian people. I am horrified that the Jewish Holocaust by Nazi Germany is weaponized to enable a Palestinian Holocaust in Gaza and the West Bank. I wish that the Commissioner here and the government would understand that this toxic conflation of Judaism with Zionism, of anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, is the #1 danger to everyone, including Jews of any type. I warned the Royal Commission in my submission against this conflation and expressed my horror at the Commissioner's adoption of the RRHA definition of anti-Semitism, by which criticism of Israel can be seen as anti-Semitism. I also spelled out my suspicion that the hidden agenda of the prominent Zionists who pushed for this commission is to suppress criticism of Israel, to ban Palestine protests, and to legalize censorship in our public institutions, including media, the arts, and educational bodies. We have seen such shameful censorship playing out when artists were scrapped, writers were cancelled, and journalists disinvited. It is playing out right now in the healthcare sector, since the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency has adopted the IHRA definition to evaluate practitioner conduct. Yes, shame indeed, because workers will face a risk of workplace censorship if they refuse to be silent when hospitals are being bombed, healthcare workers kidnapped, tortured, killed in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon. Beyond. Will this Royal Commission let itself be the tool for such censorship? Zionist political interference undermines democracy and Australian sovereignty. Zionist social intimidation undermines cohesion and unity in our multicultural society. People have lost jobs, livelihoods for speaking out against Zionism. They have been the object of smear campaigns and have been dragged into court. Will the Royal Commission hear their side of the story? When well-known and well-respected Australians are the target of Zionist wrath, it sends a sinister message to the Australian citizen. No one will be spared. And when our government and our public institutions buckle under pressure from the peak bodies of Australian Zionist Jewry, our conclusion can only be that they are not serving the interest of Australian people, but the interest of Israel and its enabler, the USA. Australian scholar Professor Halim Rani recently laid out the terms of reference for a royal commission that Australia actually does need to have. He said, "What we really need is a royal commission into Israel's influence on Australian political decision-making, legislation, media, universities, civil society," the list goes on. This sentiment was echoed by the former director of Adelaide Writers' Festival, Jewish Australian Louise Adler, when she wrote in Deep Cut last week that if the Royal Commission is serious about investigating the nature of anti-Semitism and its key drivers, it should begin with Australia's Israel lobby, the leading proponents of the conflation of anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. I think it is inevitable that anti-Semitism will increase here in Australia and also around the world, as long as Israel claims to represent all Jews, and as long as a large number of non-Israeli Jews identify with Israel. Well, you think about it, synagogues, which should be temples for religious practice and devotion, are hosting speaking tours for Israeli fundraisers who come here to recruit young Jews for the IDF and to raise money for illegal settlements in the West Bank and to recommend real estate deals of land and property unlawfully taken away from Palestinians. It is only logical that anti-Semitism will rise when millions of taxpayers' dollars are spent on protecting the so-called Jewish community, but support for others dries up or is simply withdrawn. And it should be blatantly obvious, really, to the Commissioner that when censorship creeps in and democratic rights are tossed out, social unity will suffer. It would be a good thing if the Royal Commission were to have a good inward look and take pains to avoid being racist and damaging to social cohesion itself. As for us, let us make sure that the voice of truth prevails. Thank you.
Jepke, and my name's Adam. I'm from Stop the War on Palestine. I'll be introducing our next speaker. I just wanted to do a couple of chants before we get to that. Albanese, you can't hide.
Albanese, you can't hide.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
Gillian Seagull, you can't hide.
Julian Siegel, you can't hide.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
And we are here today to say that this Royal Commission is nothing but a farce. It's been used to continue the disgraceful smears of Palestinians and the Palestine Solidarity Movement. It's been used to amplify calls to further attack our civil liberties, to protect the genocidal state of Israel and its supporters in our government from accountability. It has relentlessly platformed vile anti-Palestinian racism, figures from the pro-Israel lobby, pro-Israel activists who have a strong track record of spreading hate. And Gillian Seagull is one of them, sitting in the commission right now. If you want to know everything you need to know about this government that appointed her as Special Envoy and about this Royal Commission, you need to look at what she said in November 2023 when Israel was unleashing its genocide on Palestine. She co-signed a statement saying it was libel to say Palestinian hospitals were protected by international law. We just saw the UN inquiry release a report which details Israel's genocidal targeting of Palestinian children. It reports a case in November 2023, the same month Gillian Siegel made that statement, where 4 infants were found decomposing in the NICU incubators of Al Nasser Hospital in Gaza after an Israeli attack which blew up the hospital and cut off the electricity. And that too they have put in that commission to tell us how to fight bigotry. She's not the solution to hate speech, she's a practitioner of it. And this government should be eternally shamed. But looking at the absolute disgrace of this commission, knowing that its recommendations are designed to protect a genocidal state, just steels us to refuse to be silent until every shred of this government's complicity has been ended by the united mass movement that was so powerfully talked about by Jepke, that is a symbol of the unity and the struggle for justice together that we need to make the society we should have against the people in that commission who are advocating support for genocide. So the next speaker I want to introduce has been part of that struggle. His name's Angus. He was one of the students against war activists who were given a disciplinary notice for displaying the Handala Palestinian cartoon at Sydney Uni. All the speakers so far, as Adam said, I'm going to talk about the situation at the universities right now, because the universities, have been a focus for the claims of a crisis of anti-Semitism in the Palestine movement. Gillian Siegel, who's in there this morning, has a plan for the universities that involves them getting anti-Semitism report cards for how effectively they deal with pro-Palestine protests. At UCIT now, we have a special advisor to the Vice-Chancellor on anti-Semitism who helps run one of the exchange programs with the Israeli universities, who helped run the lobby group at UCIT that went after pro-Palestine staff. We're told that the universities have an out-of-control anti-Semitism crisis, but what the bosses and the governments are really worried about is that at the universities we have a Palestine movement that for 3 years now they have failed to silence. And what's happening at the universities now is part of this broader wave of repression alongside this Royal Commission Farce that wants to very cynically use the real scourge of anti-Semitism to silence opponents of genocide and to wind back the winds of the Palestine movement. At UCID, the repression increased after the Palestine encampment when we camped out on the lawns at our university for 2 months to make it known to everybody that our university was complicit in apartheid and genocide. And in response, they didn't cut any of the ties with Israel that we were protesting about. They made it so that you can't have a stall, you can't have a protest on campus if the university hasn't been notified of it and given you their approval. They've used that to go after our protests when Israel was bombing Iran, when Israel was bombing Lebanon. They even went after a bake sale raising money for Palestinians. We have a policy now that bans the flying of flags that they use to go into staff members' offices after the Harbour Bridge March that was talked about and take down Palestinian flags that have been flying out of those windows for 2 years. We have a policy banning lecture announcements which says that you can't talk about the genocide in your class or you could face disciplinary action. And of course, as with the Royal Commission, all of this has been done to cover for the crimes that our university and our government are complicit in. We have ties at Sydney Uni to Israeli universities like the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, like Tel Aviv University, who train the IDF officers killing Palestinians in Gaza, who build their universities on stolen Palestinian land, who help run the Israeli weapons companies that have produced the most horrific weapons of war. And we have our own ties at Sydney Uni to the weapons companies. Companies like Thales, like Lockheed Martin. There's a lab on campus that researches how to make the sensors in the F-35 fighter jets killing Palestinians more effective at killing. And what has the result been for Palestinian students of this, genocide in Gaza? The complete obliteration of the education system in Gaza, the destruction, the bombing of every single university campus, the ruthless targeting of students and staff for execution by Israel. More recently we've seen the settler and IDF attacks on Palestinian students in primary school in the West Bank. I think, you know, what is going on at the universities is this disgusting attempt to use anti-Semitism to cover for the fact that our university is involved in it and that students oppose it. You know, people might have seen or heard Adam mention the absurd levels that repression reached this semester. So Students Against the War organised a rally during the UCIT Exchange Fair where 2 years before they had hosted representatives from Tel Aviv University. We organised this protest and we made a poster for it. The poster said, "No exchange with apartheid." It had the logos of complicit Israeli universities covered in blood to represent the blood of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that those universities' reputations are stained with. And it featured the Handala, an important national symbol for the Palestinian people, a cartoon of a 10-year-old Palestinian refugee created by the Palestinian artist Naji Al-Ali to represent the age that he was when he was expelled in the Nakba in 1948. The university, in an attempt to punish us for exposing their complicity in genocide, sent 2 of us letters warning that our poster would be assessed under the university's Australia definition of anti-Semitism, which is based on the IHRA definition, with the potential for us to be referred for disciplinary action as a result of that investigation under that definition, which conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. In the letter, they claim that the combined effect of the imagery and words in the poster, the claim that Israeli universities are complicit in apartheid, the representation of the fact that these universities are covered in Palestinian blood, and the use of the Handala might be anti-Semitic. They say that the Handala, this Palestinian symbol of a 10-year-old child with closed hands, is considered by some to be associated with violence against Israeli citizens or a symbol against Jewish self-determination. This cartoon of a 10-year-old child waiting to return to his home that he was displaced from might be violent. According to UCIT, it might be anti-Semitic. This is the sort of anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab racism that the university has to rely on to go after the Palestine movement. 2 years earlier, during Israel's bombing of Lebanon, we had received a letter warning us that our use of a poem written in Arabic might have been violent too, because we put it on a poster opposing the bombing of Lebanon. But the letters we received about this latest poster was an attack not just on the Handala, it wasn't just racist, it was an attempt to say that any calls to boycott Israeli institutions who are complicit in apartheid and genocide are wrong. The university said that, you know, boycotting Israeli institutions, which they allege are civilian institutions, might amount to collective blame because it was not targeting the Israeli government. When the university sends you one of these letters, you're told that you are not allowed to speak about it publicly. You know, that you have to stay silent, you have to follow these strict confidentiality requirements. The people who are smearing you as violent, as anti-Semitic, also get to determine how you respond to those claims. It's an attempt to isolate supporters of Palestine even further. But supporters of Palestine and opponents of genocide should not be made to feel isolated or intimidated. So we went public about their attempts to intimidate us. And very quickly we were able to get 800 signatures on an open letter calling for these proceedings to be dropped. The UCIT branch of the NTU, the staff union, passed a motion to the same effect, and we held a rally on campus about it with Ethan Floyd, who had just returned from the flotilla to Gaza. Less than a week later, the university was forced to drop those proceedings against us. But it's not just that they were forced to drop them. They were forced to concede that the call to boycott Israeli institutions is not anti-Semitic and not a breach of their own policies. And they state that this has been their position already. So you have to ask why we were subject to these proceedings in the first place then. Their response made it clear that it was not about anti-Semitism, but a disgraceful, cynical attempt to silence students using claims that they knew would never stick if they were challenged. But the point of this is, and the message from UCIT is, that you do have to challenge it. Our governments and our universities will get away with as much as we let them. But we can fight back if we're organised like we have been at Sydney Uni. In the hospitals, where APRA wants to enforce this IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, workers need to be supported to do what we've done at Sydney Uni to respond to the introduction of a similar definition. When they introduced that last year, we held a student general meeting with hundreds of students to vote against it, to resist any attempts to impose it. And this year we made that real by running that campaign in defence of the Handala, refusing to be investigated under this definition of anti-Semitism. It'll be the same in the schools where they're going after teachers, and it'll be the same wherever the Royal Commission decides that it needs to be, wherever our government know that there are ties to Israel, ties to genocide, ties to apartheid, the people oppose and that they think they can repress people out of opposing. So the last thing I'll say is that a movement which can stand up to this repression is a movement that can actually cut those ties to genocide and apartheid. And we've seen this at Sydney Uni. This university, who have been the leaders of the repression of the Palestine movement, were also the first university in Australia to cut one of the exchange programs between an Australian university and an Israeli university. Not because they wanted to, but because we forced them to drop the exchange program with Bezalel, an Israeli university which was sewing uniforms for the IDF in Gaza with love hearts in them. We cut that tie. There are many more ties to cut at Sydney Uni and everywhere else. The F-35 program, the Pine Gap spy base. We need to be organised to defy this repression. We need to keep fighting until those ties are cut. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. Crime, opposing it is not. Genocide's a crime, opposing it is not. Genocide's a crime, opposing it is not. So I want to introduce our next speaker, Rachel Evans from the City of Sydney for Palestine. It's appropriate she's speaking today. July 9 is actually the day that the call for boycott, divestment and sanctions of Israel was founded. And City of Sydney for Palestine has worked tirelessly in that cause. They won a motion in the council to stop contracts with Hewlett Packard, who collaborate with the Israeli genocidal government, including in the prison system run by Ben Gvir. So it's great to have Rachel speak to that today.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
My name is Rachel Evans, and I'll read out a statement from Olivia Carney, who is speaking on behalf of City of Sydney for Palestine. Liv has been called into work and cannot speak as she intended. Liv is of Jewish heritage, was raised in Bondi and has many Jewish friends and family members. She is a long-term City of Sydney for Palestine activist and has attended many of the weekend rallies and Palestine solidarity events. This is her speech. Hello everyone, I am sorry I can't be with you. I want to acknowledge we are on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. This land was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I commend the groups organising this action against the silencing of pro-Palestinian voices within the Royal Commission on Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion. This commission is privileging Zionist pro-genocide messages and sidelining anti-war ones. I am speaking on behalf of City of Sydney for Palestine, who have been organising protests to stop Israel's genocide on Palestine and campaigning for the City of Sydney Council to take a strong stand. Through consistent organising, the City of Sydney Council became the first boycott, divest and sanction Israel council within New South Wales. The Palestine Solidarity Movement, with many anti-Zionist Jewish activists involved, have organised hundreds of large and small demonstrations in Sydney against Israel's genocidal assault against Palestine and Lebanon. Hyde Park, Sydney Town Hall, Central Station, to name a few locations, have had many rallies throughout them for over 1,000 days to protest Israel's crimes against humanity. Who will ever forget the pro-Palestine rally of 300,000 people in pouring rain on Sydney Harbour Bridge? For all of this activity, the Council's pro-Palestine motions and the support shown to our protest from onlookers, we can assuredly say that the City of Sydney is an anti-genocide town. These demonstrations have been peaceful and in no way anti-Semitic in tone. Attempts to conflate our pro-Palestine rallies as anti-Semitic are baseless and designed to discredit the anti-racist aims of our pro-Palestine movement. The Royal Commission, in its grotesque attempt to conflate our anti-Zionist, anti-genocide movement with anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic bigotry, is attempting to undermine our movement for freedom and justice for Palestine. But it cannot and it won't. Gadigal country is an anti-genocide town and will remain so. We join with the Jews Against the Occupation 48, Stop the War on Palestine and others to call on the Royal Commission
being held in the City of Sydney's jurisdiction to stop aiding this dangerous narrative that being pro-Palestine is anti-Semitic. We call on the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism and social cohesion to hear more voices of anti-Zionist Jews, Palestinian activists and anti-genocide campaigners. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Stop arming Israel!
Stop arming Israel!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Israel out of Lebanon!
Israel out of Lebanon!
Thank you.
Rachel, and yeah, we've just come past 1,000 days of this genocide. That's been 1,000 days of complicity from the Albanese government, as we've heard, 1,000 days of sending the fighter jet parts, the steel, the intelligence, the explosives to Israel, and it is only a complicit government that needs to resort to the kind of farce we're seeing with this Royal Commission to silence criticism and silence accountability. This isn't a Royal Commission, it's taxpayer-funded PR for Israel and its supporters. But it's also been over 1,000 days of resistance, of protest, of BDS wins, of campaigning. Stop the War on Palestine will be taking the fight to the heart of this government's complicity, in the heart of this continent, at the Pine Gap spy base in July. To say that base must be closed immediately. We'll be protesting outside the US consulate to coincide with that on the 19th of July as well. United, diverse movements standing together against genocide, and social cohesion means nothing if it doesn't mean that. So we're just going to have a couple of final words and an announcement from Michelle from Jews Against Occupation, and then everyone should stick around because we're going to walk down this road and take a photo across this road from the Royal Commission building outside Wynyard Station, holding the signs with the message that they've tried to silence and failed to silence through these proceedings. So I'll pass the microphone to Michelle.
Hi everybody. First of all, Free Palestine,
is
and
telling
of course
him
we have to
he doesn't want him to
acknowledge
walk,
that
I'd say.
the foundational racism of Australia is just coming to a head because it's hitting us, but it's always been here against our Indigenous people. What I'm asking of people is to counteract the narrative of the royal omission and go online to our website, which is jao48australia.org. And if not, just contact one of us via Facebook and find it, because we have not only our group's submission to the omission, but we have all of our other ones up except for Judith, because I'm still struggling with the images to get them up there. But they're all there and they need to be put out around. Just share the links, make sure that the anti-Zionist Jewish voice gets out there. Not that we're any more important than anyone else's, but we are being weaponized, and it's the best. The way we work is to take the weapon that we have been unwillingly handed and use it. So that's why we ask you to spread our voices around. Thank you very much.
Okay everyone, if we want to just cross the road here at the lights as we normally would, we can make our way down and take that photo. Thanks everyone for coming.
All right, so they're about to do the walk. I think, well, the cops had a bit of a word to him, and now I think he's just going ahead now. I'm just surmising here. Oh, he's having another word to him now, telling him no. But the other...
Everyone, please just make your way down.
The copper Matt Perry, he's telling him, yeah, he wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, mate. Oh, sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I'm attacking people as I go. Sorry. Stick this away. Sorry, my umbrella. Just wipe someone out with my handset umbrella. I'm holding on to it for dear life. Oh, here the cops has got to stand there now. All right. So it isn't going to happen. Well, what's he saying? They're going to do a photo. I think they're going to. Whoop. Cars coming as well. We'll see what happens. So he's still. Just dropped my umbrella off. I'm going to go before the traffic. Whoop.
Not the bombs racing down on Gaza is exactly why we're here today. Too many coppers, not enough justice.
Too many coppers.
Not enough justice. Too many coppers.
Not enough justice. Too many coppers.
Not enough justice. Not enough justice.
So they've made a little line across. The police have made a line across the street, and then half of the Palestine protesters, or half the protesters, have made another line. There's more cops coming in, but handshakes and the boys are happy to see each other.
We are the people too. We won't be silent. Stop the bombing now, 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 now. One. We are the people. Two. We won't be silent. Three. Stop the bombing now, 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 now. One. We are the people. Two. We won't be silent. Three. Stop the bombing now, 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 now. From the river to the sea.
In mainstream media, it's ridiculous. The three of them again. They're like they operate as a single unit. So that's Channel 9. I don't know what the other ones are, but yeah.
If you do not remove yourselves off the road, you'll be committing a traffic offence.
Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine.
If blocking traffic, you may have to move off the road.
Albanese, blood on your hands.
Albanese, blood on your hands.
Albanese, blood on your hands.
Albanese, blood on your
More mainstream media on the way as well, and the
Albanese, blood on your hands.
not a lot of resistance with the moving off the street part, except for me. Well, I'll follow them through. This guy. There's a couple of dawdlers, but they're gone now. And you get the media pack on the other side there. It's the road. So I get on the step. He's a bit cranky, that one. All right, the police are cordoning in a little more now. Virtually, I guess they're going to try and block this intersection. Well, that gets the traffic flowing on that side. They're going to divert I guess they're diverting the traffic down there now.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
Albanese, you can't hide.
Gillian Seagull, you can't hide.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
Gillian Seagull, you can't hide.
Gillian Seagull, you can't hide.
You're supporting genocide.
You're supporting genocide.
Cops are spreading out everywhere now.
You're supporting genocide.
We remember what the police did at the Herzog rally.
Shame.
What the police did at the Herzog rally.
Shame.
Remember what the police did at the Herzog rally.
Shame.
Remember what the police did at the Herzog rally.
anti-racism and opposition to genocide. Everything that Royal Commission and this government does not represent. So we're going to end this rally today on a simpler, strong, united note. Free Palestine, stop arming Israel, free Gaza.
All right, well, I'd say that's it. Look at the reporter here. He's done bugger all. He just walked up. Yeah. Apologies about my commentary as always, but it just, you know, I mean, you can see what's going on. Here we go.
Not allowed to walk. Not only not allowed to march, now you're not allowed to walk.
Sam's here. I haven't seen her for a while. She's behind the lines there.
Shame on the cops. Shame on Chris Mintz. Shame on Chris Mintz. And your police commissioner and your premier.
Yep. So it looks like they're not letting anyone go through this way, even if you want to go just to the station. It's not happening. Except the mainstream media guy, Channel 9, he's in there. Well, that's kind of it, I think. Sorry about that earlier on. I was very panicked about losing my umbrella. He said, "Oh fuck, this guy is just going." All right. I'd say that's it, unless I restart. So this is number 83 Clarence Street in Sydney. We're outside the Royal Commission, and I just saw the media jump into position. So I think what's going to happen is that Julian Siegel, the anti-Semitism envoy, is going to be coming out as an assumption. So yeah, only the sort of press media, the video media haven't really made much of a move yet. There's one here, but not that many. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see if we can, if she's going to give an interview. I doubt it. Maybe, we'll see.